Good morning. And it feels like Halloween was just yesterday. So we have some stuff to go over, obviously, in the art project. And so we're going to dive into that. And of course, as usual, as Alicia said, I mean, we're going to answer every question we can, as we always have with this project. I think folks know that we've had a commitment to being transparent about the challenges with this project in the beginning. And we've been very concerned about many aspects of this project since the beginning. And to recap a little bit, there were really three primary issues with the project. And the first one was construction and the design of the route. And of course, around the middle of the summer, we were able to basically finish all of those issues. And essentially the art project since then has been, from a design perspective, ready to go. The second major challenge was, of course, funding. And the challenges we had with getting federal funding and so forth, and sort of a lot of the reset and redos we had to do with that. That, of course, came through, I believe it was in August, where we finally found out that we did get our federal funding. And so that process has always been working smoothly since then. The third aspect has been the buses, the technology associated with the buses, the company who makes the buses, and all things buses. This is where we're at in terms of the project. And folks might remember there's been, initially when we came in February, we identified several problems with the buses. We negotiated with the company for them to come fix a lot of these problems. Roughly in the middle of the summer, they did their first round of sort of a reset and provided some changes on the buses and so forth. We cycled through with them several times on that. And in August, we felt, and they felt, that at least we were ready to start sort of testing the buses. Finally, we can test them in the corridor, and we can sort of do a dress rehearsal or a dry run to really see how these perform. And so that's what we've been conducting in September and up until the beginning of October. Now, unfortunately, these tests did not go well, and we found major problems with the buses. And so today we are here to say that we are actually grounding the fleet until we do a full inspection of every single bus. And this is due to safety reasons. We are not going to let these buses on our streets until we are 100% sure they're safe. And what the tests found is that today, at least several of them are not. And so we're in the process of testing these buses through an inspection process. And we want to make sure that no one is going to get hurt either riding these buses or driving these buses or being around these buses. And some of the problems that we found in the course of our own inspections as we started training was there are multiple mechanical issues. We're going to go into some of these details. The brakes were often malfunctioning. Often the doors were not working. And the training sessions surfaced all of these issues. These really don't come out until you're actually doing that dry run. And so I am not going to let our city and our taxpayers be taken advantage of by a company or put our citizens at risk with these issues on the buses. So that's why we're grounding the fleet right now until we can go through a full inspection process. Now, we do, of course, believe the most important thing for the public is safety. And these buses right now appear to be unsafe at any speed. So we're going to continue to hold BYD accountable. We have given them roughly a year to work through these challenges, to try and take a path of least resistance and come to a way to proceed forward. Unfortunately, this is a major stumbling block for BYD with respect to this project, and I'm running out of patience with them. So after 9 months of trying to work with them, we are now going to have a full inspection process and determine whether or not and how to proceed. We expect this inspection process to last about a month. Somewhere in a month or so, we are going to update the public with the full results of that inspection process as best that we can. And then we'll have a determination on what we're going to do going forward. We're looking at multiple paths in terms of perhaps buses from other cities, perhaps buses from other vendors, and of course, such that in the inspections might yield that these problems were limited to only a few buses, then there might be another path forward there too. But we know that in the next month, we're going to figure out which path we're going to go on for the long term on this project, because we're not going to continue this back and forth with the bus company much longer. Now, we want to also share with you some of the more specific details. So I'm going to bring our transit director, Bernie Toon, up here, and then I'll wrap things up a little bit, and we'll see if Lawrence wants to add in some other items as well. So our director of transit, Bernie Toon.
Thank you, Mayor. So as everyone will recall, when we began driver training, we noted that we had 3 goals. First, to train our drivers in operating and docking the ART buses at their stations. Second, to get regular drivers used to sharing the road with ART buses in the corridor and in the ART lanes. And third, to see how the buses would perform, since only a few of them had actually been driven in the corridor to any significant degree. We began driver training on July 23rd, and during the first week and continuing, the buses had air conditioning outages and door malfunctions. And as training continued, we were communicating these issues to BYD when bolts began to fall off doors and rear doors would open during bus operation without any action by the driver. As a result, our mechanics started to look for the causes of these problems and began identifying new problems. On October 3rd, the most serious problem identified by our mechanics thus far was discovered. The center and rear brakes on the buses had 0 air pressure, yet the bus was able to move. This should not happen. This means that the center and rear axle brakes were not working. The buses were relying on their front brakes alone. This is a fleet-wide issue and poses significant safety concerns that have to be resolved by BYD before any city employee or member of the public rides on these buses. BYD has been troubleshooting these issues, but has not yet proposed any solutions. And given these significant safety developments, the buses have been grounded and pulled from the ART corridor until the inspections have been completed that the mayor just mentioned. I think it's also important to note that BYD failed to perform as promised on the route on the construction of the supplementary charging stations that we agreed to a few months back. This agreement was a direct result of the buses not holding the charge that they were supposed to have when they were delivered to us. This continued lack of performance by BYD and the resulting safety issues that I just outlined have caused a delay in our ability to start limited service this winter. We're currently reassessing that schedule in light of these developments and moving forward with the detailed inspections that the mayor has ordered. And now I'll turn to Lawrence Real or to the mayor for a wrap-up.
Anything else? Well, let me just close by saying that we have done everything we can as a city to execute on this project. Of course, this is something that we inherited, but we have honored that inheritance by trying to get it done. And we've done everything that we can, meaning the route is ready, our department is ready, and our education programs and driver training and so forth is all ready. But the buses are clearly not, and that means this project is going to be on hold for a while. So with that, let me, I believe actually, I mean there's a lot more I could share, but I'll just open it up for questions. I'm sure a lot of that stuff will come out. Questions?
Will that affect federal funding?
Lawrence Real.
So the partnership between the city and the Federal Transit Administration has been there consistently, even though we did have a lot of work to do related to the getting the federal funds. We've had conversations now on 2 occasions specifically on this issue, and the Federal Transit Administration will work with us as we move through the process. Depending on what we ultimately decide after this inspection is done, then we'll have to probably go back and restructure our agreement with the Federal Transit Administration. But it's not an unusual issue. It happens a lot with these projects because they award the dollars before the projects are usually complete, and then we just work with them to ensure that we've met all the requirements as per the agreement.
Yeah, and there are some silver linings here. One is we have a great relationship with the FTA, and so they are aware of all of this. We have contacted them, and they're supportive of our approach. And also, I want to mention, recall, we have not paid a penny for these buses, and we don't intend to until all these issues are resolved.
You said you're reassessing the schedule for that winter start date we had initially heard. What are you guys looking at for a possible start date with these new developments?
So the key is really what these inspections are going to yield. So in other words, if the inspections turn out, in a way that has a possible route forward with the current buses, then I think we're going to have a date that's sooner rather than later. If the inspection comes out poorly, then we're going to have to really step back and probably have a whole new timeline. So, and also we want to be, again, I always want to be like really straightforward with what sort of we know and what we will know. And so I want to be able to answer that question more specifically in about a month, and that's when those inspections are going to be done.
We've done stories where we've seen, people still driving in those ART lanes, and where we're sitting out there and we see the city could maybe be giving, let's say like 1,000 tickets a day to people. Even during these inspections, how's the city going to enforce that?
Well, we have noticed during this training period, we did notice, of course, that that's still an issue. And, even for myself, it's like I really have to force myself not to turn into those lanes. But we do know, because the fleet's grounded right now, of course, we're not going to be enforcing those until we come out with the inspections in a new timeline. So we're just pressing pause right now, and in about a month we should know the same long-term plan with respect to the traffic rules and enforcement.
So not enforcing it at all, not warnings or anything?
For the next month, no. Yeah.
Will the bus lanes be back open and left turn lanes open to traffic, or are people supposed to still be abiding by the rules of the road with these aren't lanes?
So the rules of the road always apply, and that is a safety issue, just to remind folks that, even with respect to whether they're medians or not, all existing rules apply for medians and so forth. But we do know this, if we have pending the results of the inspection, if we have a shorter term timeline, then again, we're going to educate both the public and drivers on how this will all work, which is what we were planning to do had these issues not surfaced. If there's a longer timeline, then we'll have a updated traffic management plan on how we're going to do that.
So Five Star Burger had to close last night. They say it's because of art and the left turn lanes. A lot of businesses are basically blaming art for their lack of revenue. Are you guys going to acknowledge that or do anything about that or help any of these businesses that have had to close, because they say that, a lot of people, it's kind of confusing to get to their business and that left lane? I mean, I guess since you have to now turn left and you can't go right.
Mm-hmm. Well, I literally am a regular at Five Star, and so am very aware of that. We eat there probably twice a week at that one, and so look, we have always stated that these businesses, unfortunately, may have been affected by this project. That effect with respect to construction and so forth obviously happened, long before we got here. What we are trying to do is remind folks that Central is open for business. We have a new road with new lighting, and actually folks are sort of getting used to, when you think about El Vado and so forth, people are seemingly are learning how to get to those businesses. So we're trying to just remind folks, please visit all the businesses down on Central. And we do know that businesses seem to be doing a little bit better in other parts of the city, and there are 2 new businesses open right next to that location. And so we want to be supportive in any way we can, and we're open to any ideas on how to do that. And we're believers in Route 66. But we have this project, and so there's no way to erase it without spending another $200 million of taxpayer money.
So is there a plan B? You've got a month and you're going to look at these buses again, but do you have a plan B in case the buses don't work out?
We are working on 3 plans, and so one plan will involve an entirely different fleet, and it's just an option right now, but we are fully fleshing that out. It's something we actually started doing this summer because we were concerned about this, but now we're developing timetables and relationships on how that might play out. The other plan is how we might have a mixed fleet of buses so that we can begin at least some sort of partial service. And the third plan is, if this recharging stations and mobile setup in terms of these the charging areas at Coronado and so forth, they're late on those as well. So we're trying to understand, like, is it feasible today for us to even have an electric fleet? And so we're investigating all of those. And I do believe, because our team has been working on this as a contingency plan for a while, I think we're going to be able to line up a path forward roughly about the same time as we get back the inspection results. And so we will at least be ready on about our year inheritance anniversary to know what we're going to do in the long term.
Did any of these brake failures or other failures result in any accidents with other vehicles on Central?
That's a really good question, and I have to check Bernie. Do you know that one, or Lawrence? We might have to forward you to APD or someone else for that one.
Right, so at least on one of the accidents, which was early on, if that's the one you're referring to, when they first ran, there's cameras on the buses, right? So it's pretty obvious that in that particular incident, that the drivers actually weren't used to having buses on the left side, right? And they just pulled in front of the bus. So it was almost an instantaneous impact. This last one, we're going to look at that. That's part of the inspection to see whether or not that may have been an issue, but we don't have anything definitively on that.
And have you received any, I think the last time we met on this, you were anticipating receiving a good chunk of money pretty quickly. Has any money from the federal government come your way?
Today, I'm happy to say that we have received the entire $75 million that was programmed from the FTA.
If there's a long delay for any of those 3 potential plans to come to fruition, would the city look at potentially opening up those left turn lanes for drivers?
So the left turn lanes were part of the design that we sort of inherited, and the reason why they're set up that way is for safety when the buses are running. So we certainly are absolutely open to looking at that, but it was abundantly clear, at least under the safety studies, that those left turns literally would create issues where buses are hitting cars. So it was, and again, I'm referencing a past administration's analysis, but that analysis basically said that you can't really have the ART project without limiting some of the left-hand turns. But if we have some more time to look at this, we're open to anything to try and make this thing better for our city. So hopefully we'll be able to work on that a little bit.
Will the former mayor face any consequences for this plan?
I don't even know how to answer that one. It's a good question, though. I mean, I would just say this, that to our knowledge, I mean, there was an appropriate contract process and so forth. So I know there's been an inspector general's report and things like that. So I would just reference that. And I think there's also a good sort of rule of thumb that you never speak for someone else. And so I won't in this case either.
Are the inspections already underway on the buses, or is that going to start soon?
So we've done, of course, we have our own mechanics and our own skilled individuals who can look at this. So we've been doing our inspections. And basically we concluded on those that these issues are so serious that we need to have a literally bus by bus approach to the inspections. And so we're going to be working with different folks to be able to do that going forward, both experts that we can contract with and the folks who work for the transit department.
So in that inspection report, it says that Barry was rushing the deadline for this, kind of asking for this to be done by the time he was done with his term. So it's confusing that, like, why wouldn't he? Has that been in question at all, if he would face any consequences for this?
Well, I mean, we're very focused on how to make this work, because that's what we sort of came into. And you'd have to maybe ask the Inspector General's office on that. Okay, all right, well, thank you guys. We hope to see you in a month or so with information with respect to the inspections. Thank you.